This program deals with devil worship and satanic beliefs. It contains explicit scenes and descriptions of violent crimes and rituals.
Americans are asking, who attacked our country?
You have declared a subliminal jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
And night fell on a different world.
And Iblis is thinking, I should be getting this position, not Adam, and this guy is created from dirt.
And how does the army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but
I want you to give me power over Adam. And I want you to give me soldiers and minions and all of these things.
The people had so much to gain and had such a material motive for putting me in a position I'm in. We'll never let the true facts come above board to the world.
And I want you to be able to give me the ability to whisper into the hearts of mankind.
And who was the Grotto leader?
Don't remember his name.
You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
now these people are in very high positions, yeah.
Welcome back to Subliminal Jihad, episode 167. I am your co-host Dimitri.
I'm Khalid.
And we're back today.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, we're always back, but we're so back today.
Yeah. We haven't recorded together in a long time. You were on a trip and, just various stuff, but, we're recording. Here we are.
Yeah, I think the longest little hiatus that SJ has ever done has now, come to a close, and it's...
Is that true? Is I guess, yeah, true, because you weren't recording anything. I've definitely feel like I've taken, months off when I was doing my dissertation, but...
Normally, I think that's when I go into my little Demon Forces cave and eventually start cranking out those, but this time, no, I was... bouncing around the EU for a little bit, and then, came back, had to settle various things. So neither of us, we've been re-releasing some hits from the past. Somebody, I'm sure anybody's noticed on our feed, but somebody had asked me to re-upload some of the early Hot Gaff, the Gustavus Myers episodes, because I think they're going to go camping where there was no cell phone reception. And I realized that I guess you can't download the SoundCloud ones, but you can download it on Patreon. So that turned into, hey, and then let me fix some of the shitty audio in the early ones. So I think at this point we've mostly re-released all the Hot Gaff ones, which actually has been nice to listen to because there's so much information in that, and some of it gets lost in the sauce after 160 something episodes, I think. So it's nice to revisit these things, but no, we're back, and I think, today is a Q&A, but we're also back where, we are so back right at the time when it feels like it is so over for, I don't know, a lot of things in the world. The world is a little bit
it's a horrible week.
Yes. And we're recording this on October 18th, Wednesday, which I believe is this 11 days after the current military conflict or mass
military
slaughter.
conflict.
It's like a really charitable way of putting it. But
the clash,
the clash.
The disagreement. The property dispute kicked off, with
which I think definitely for you and for myself as well, and I think for a lot of listeners has been a pretty harrowing and disturbing week and a half.
Outraged. I've been very mad.
Same.
And it's awful looking at social media. It's like X. There needs to be an exodus. I really think that this app is needs to end. It's just, not to say that it was ever not evil, as we've said many times, it always was, but its evil potentialities, I think, have under its new leadership have been brought out all the more. I never thought that I would miss the days of the old blue checks. And the legacy media on the Palestine issue is dreadful, but I genuinely think that like the noise of like particularly like Hindu fascist like anon or like imposter accounts is yeah exactly. Or I am Al Jazeera journalist Farah Khan. I saw Hamas's rocket blow up the hospital.
Yeah.
like 5 zillion times every hour, like just spamming it like
it's just like a Hasbara hurricane on X right now, that's basically.
Exactly. And like the way that it's set up where like if there are Palestinian journalists who still are able to get on Twitter, like they're probably gonna be in less of a position to pay the fucking $8 to get their posts like boosted. And I genuinely think that the $8 boost is greater than the boost that you got from being actually verified on the old Twitter. Like now, like your posts are so prioritized if you pay the freaking $8. And so it's just like all these like IDF accounts that are like just making up lies without
nonstop.
Yeah, they just lie.
I mean, now we're more in the. I mean, there's been lying throughout. Now we're really in the peak. I feel like the lying is taken over. The open, like genocidal bloodlust, which was really a hallmark of like the first few days. It's still there, but I think maybe they're like sort of realizing now that has some downsides. But I mean, the open calls for like a second Nakba for, exterminating these, human animals and like all that kind of language with everybody in the U.S. just kind of like applauding and totally cool with it. It's led to a really dark and fucked up situation now. And I think in Europe as well, where I just was, the coolest ultra liberal city in Europe, Berlin, is pretty much banning, pro-Palestinian protests of any kind now. And I don't know if it's as extreme. Some European countries are like, even if you walk around with a Palestinian flag, like that's considered like supporting Hamas and you can get deported. Like, I think France and the UK have been flirting with that.
People like are getting like in trouble. Like I think in Israel, people are getting arrested for like liking like Instagram posts. Like people are literally getting like investigated over like who they follow on social media. Like it seems like it's hard to imagine it lingering for as long. Maybe it will, but it seems like at least for now we've like been like thrust back into like the post 9/11 insanity. Like
for a lot of people.
One
of the very interesting things to see as far as social media goes has also been all of these people that I feel like have been relatively like pretty well boosted on Elon's X, but I'm talking about the dissident right, like the dissident intellectual dark web renegades who are against all this bullshit.
Not neocons by any stretch.
Not neocons. They don't want to live in your longhouse.
They're critical of the CIA and the FBI.
I mean, also our favorite presidential candidate.
How these days, it's the right wing that is critical. You know what? I actually will say, like, some of the people who generally I consider to be like worthless, this is the one issue where like I see that there is some like value to like what remnants of like or what sort of shadow of like a left there is like in the United States, where it actually like there's some distinction can be made. Like even some people who I generally consider to just be worthless, like on this are more or less good, or at least like make an effort in like caring in as far as it goes. You're absolutely right that like where there's kind of like, as we've criticized before, but this whole like idea of like it kind of like the Greenwald line of like, what happened where now we have the left, they just love the CIA and the right wing like Tucker are the real socialists. It's like we have like all these people who are like such dissidents and such anti-neocons like just foaming at the mouth in support of Israel's ethnic cleansing of Palestine, just like, wanton calls for genocide in a textbook sense.
Oh, yeah, and just kind of showing their bog standard neocon like face
Yes.
after all these years of playing the dissident. And I mean, we don't even need to get into like, Bronze Age Zionists suddenly, going off about how like rape and slaughter of civilians like gets him hard, and then suddenly, oh wait, this isn't Bronze Age. I mean, that was kind of funny to watch, and just everybody else of that kind of milieu, because I think even Peter Thiel historically comes from a kind of family bloodline that I would say is historically has been a little hostile to Jews, if you know what I mean, growing up, being born in West Germany. But I think that's also something we've seen today is like the really macabre kind of sort of synchronicity between the way that like hardliner Zionists are talking and behaving and like the slaughter that the military is committing, and older forms of like right-wing authoritarian apartheid governments that like they're supposed to be different from for some reason. And I think also like the sort of dystopian total surveillance state hell that the Gazans live under, I think that is something that Peter Thiel, who founded Palantir, I think he probably sees a lot of promise and a lot of good in the kind of security system that the Israelis have, and penning in undesirables into open air prisons. I'm sure that might be part of his grand vision for the future. So I think it's like everybody associated with like Thiel and like the intellectual dark web and like the Weinstein brothers, oh boy, they've been going off. All these people are just reverting to like the most like standard boomer like hysterical Zionism, after this shit happened, and not really feeling so dissident because they're even in complete lockstep with like the shit libs and Brandon and all these elitists that they hated so much. And it does feel like as gross as it is to see, it's kind of maybe a productive mask off moment for people that thought that they were really like standing against like the world order as it was, or whatever the fuck they were selling.
Yeah, not that it's worth it, and it was really truly inevitable. And you know what? The people who like bought into that are so deluded that I don't think that it's a mask off moment for them. Anyway, so I don't know. Yeah, it's rough. It's really, really rough.
And probably gonna get rougher from here. I think our boy Brandon was just in Tel Aviv today after most of the Arab leaders canceled on him because
after being glued to it. Like today, I was just like basically tuned out. Yesterday was like the hospital bombing and then subsequent denial, and I was just transfixed by that.
Same.
Because it was just like this really just mesmerizing vertigo of
horror,
propaganda and bullshit. And horror.
Horror and lies, and just like watching the narrative get kind of spun in real time.
Yeah.
And like
that's another faction on Twitter that I've come to despise over the course of this, which is like the OSINT people.
Oh,
it's like excuse me, who the fuck are you? Like, like what? You just like watch a bunch of YouTube videos of rockets, and like now you're like the geolocation expert. Like, why should I listen to you? Like, shut the fuck up. Like,
I've hated those accounts for years because like they always come down on literally one side of the narrative, and like if this had happened in Syria a few years ago, they would have been bending over backwards to be like, Assad did it. He totally launched the missile. Like, look at these coordinates and like these angles and stuff. And it feels like a lot of like a magic trick, kind of like you deluge people with like this data that looks like open source intelligence and blah blah blah, and then you can kind of spin like enough of a narrative to make things ambiguous to that.
If you just like drown people and just inundate them with enough like shit, like it just becomes exhausting. Like it's like, that typical thing, like where if you're like trying to win an argument, you just throw out a bunch of different points, and the odds are the person is not going to be able to respond to them, even if like they're all complete bullshit. So they do the exact same thing where they're just like, look at this video, look at this video, look at this video, like this proves this proves this. And it's like by the time like, you get to the 8th video, you're just like, oh my God. So yeah, it's just meant to overwhelm and distract. It's not real. And like to create confusion, not really to prove anything. like people have already brought up, I think, the comparison with, I mean, there's many, many times when Israel used a similar excuse saying that they didn't do something. And, you know, okay, like there have been times when like, rockets have misfired, things like that, and people have died as a result. So, you know, I'm not like gonna do the war nerd thing of like closing the door completely on the possibility, the 1% chance of that being the case. Sure. However, I mean, if that were the case, it would have to be the most plausible excuse that they've put forward, which is also the most despicable if it's not true, which it probably isn't, is that like there wasn't, you know, that level of casualties, that, you know, Hamas lied about the origin of the rocket and also lied about how many people died, because that's the only thing that would possibly make sense, because there's no way that Hamas rocket killed 500 plus people
by landing in a parking lot. That's what they're
just
like, that's
by breaking apart and falling
yeah.
down.
Like a
and if you listen to the video,
rocket,
like, come on.
No, yeah, it sounds like a JDAM. Like, you know, when they do the sound comparison, like it sounds like a
again. I'm not an Austin ballistic expert who's listened to thousands and thousands of hours of YouTube videos of rockets, but to me, you know, I think that it's a pretty big stretch. And just the fact of like the amount of lies that happened and the way they were gloating about it beforehand, kind of
they all posted that they struck
in one direction.
They struck terrorists, you know, in the hospital there, and then deleted it.
Yeah, and the doctor at the hospital, the director,
and 4 days ago they shelled the hospital. So
yeah, and they're certainly not. It's not like they would never strike a hospital, you know.
They've done
so
it
it's
dozens of times.
Yeah, so the evidence seems to point very strongly in one direction, but they've done this before, you know. Like people made the comparison with Shireen Abu Akleh. Like I remember that after, you know, she was killed, there was a similar thing where people were like, you know, this is the position of her body, this is the angle of like the Palestinian gunman, and like creating all these like little like sort of picture, like, you know, Zapruder film analyses of it, you know, to try to and then eventually they just sort of like months later they acknowledge it and they're like, we'll investigate, and you know, they never of course did. And there have been plenty of times where they used the sort of the faulty rocket excuse, and it turned out like, no, actually we killed all these people.
If I recall, America also did that with the Médecins Sans Frontières a hospital in Afghanistan a few years ago, where we bombed it and killed tons of people, and then I think like steadfastly denied it and said the Taliban did it like for at least months, and then quietly were like, okay, yeah, we kind of did that, like, but it was like, it was an accident, you know. And I think in this case, I mean, I'm just frustrated on the level of them throwing like the seeds of doubt in, sort of pushes aside like what I thought was kind of an intriguing question of like, why do that right before Biden arrives? Because like the reaction to it was so strong, and they had to know that would be seen as kind of like an escalatory, provocative kind of thing, even though they already were killing thousands of people. But this is like so nakedly like a civilian target, and then like what would the logic behind that be, to like sort of close the door so that Biden doesn't beat them into a corner and say like, like, hey, listen, pal, like we're getting a lot of shit from all the other Arab countries about, you know, the stuff that you're doing, so like you need to take it down a notch, even though I'm not sure that's what he would even say to them when he went there. But that's the only thing I could think of is like, okay, this is really going to polarize things into like, no, we're going to war. Like this is a big confrontation, and like you have to back us. And like, I
think that it's possible, honestly, that they didn't realize that there was going to be that level of backlash.
Interesting. That does seem to be the vibe with the rest of the bombings.
I mean, because they've just been wantonly killing civilians at an incredible rate.
Yeah, so bombing the Rafah crossing multiple times. Yeah. Like announcing that like road was open and it would be safe, and then bombing it. Like they've literally done atrocities like this multiple times over the last like week and a half.
Blame on Hamas.
Yeah, every time, you know.
But I guess, even when they directly do it, it's Hamas's fault because of the human shields. Of course. Anyway, so so I think that they've just been wantonly killing civilians without any sense of remorse or any conception that this is wrong at all, or any like acknowledgement that it's like even regrettable or unjustified. So I think that they didn't necessarily expect that there would be, that response to the hospital bombing.
Yeah, I think the energy felt like they scrambled to cobble together some like quote unquote evidence to like, but they needed like 24 hours to do that.
Originally, now they have like, the super crystal clear audio of the two Hamas operatives discussing, the misfire of the rocket.
We all know due to the amazing developments of AI that is about the easiest thing to create.
Well, it doesn't
now.
even require AI.
Or just get some guys who speak sound Palestinian, like.
Or I mean, it's not like they have names or anything, so it's like that could be anything. It's not really probative of anything, but at first, just the fact that they were posting like videos from years ago just to like create confusion. It doesn't, it suggests exactly what you're saying, like that they didn't fucking care about. Actually, proving anything. They just wanted to cast doubt, and it worked. Like it kind of worked.
Oh, it worked just enough for because I could tell the CNN anchors were uncomfortable yesterday when I was watching.
Yeah,
like having the IDF just sort of spout like some like really shaky bullshit that completely contradicted what it looked like. And then being like, okay, thank you. Like, but, are you going to give us proof, though? Like, and it's like, we'll lie for you, but you have to give us something to, like, stand on. Like, we can't just say that, like, the terrorists did it to themselves, like, without any fucking evidence. So I think the IDF is like, okay, fine. We'll put out this little press conference and these little videos. And now you can kind of say, like, the line I kept hearing yesterday was like, well, who do I trust more? The IDF? Or a terrorist organization? I'm going to pick the IDF every time. I'm like, okay, well, you're going to get lied to constantly. Like,
you're they are proven liars. They love lying. So
yeah. And I'm sure America knows, the CIA and everybody knows what actually happened. But of course, they also probably see the immense backlash from it and being like, just for their own kind of self-interest, like you have to make up whatever you got to make up. Just like, we need this to go away. This is bad. You guys went a little too hard on that one, but I think even like if they get away with this one, the amount of destruction they're inflicting is not going to be brushed under the rug. I don't think this time, and especially since I think just before we recorded, they announced Operation Vengeance Sword or whatever the fuck it's called. Their planned ground invasion is like gearing up now, and I guess Bibi allegedly informed Biden that it was inevitable. Will that end up being a huge trap for them? I guess time will tell. I'm certainly not going to make any predictions, but dicey situation all around. Really, I mean, beyond the horrors of it, like geopolitically, this is about as tense as I could imagine it being. Like in some ways, even the lead up to the war in Iraq, which I kind of remember, it like that had a little more. America was so on its like unipolar high horse that it even though it was kind of sickening, it was like we could do whatever we wanted, and like nobody was powerful enough to like stand up against us. But now it's like, are we? We're kind of in our flop era. Like America's like a fucking mess right now. I don't know. Even going to Europe before all this kicked off, and like this is probably like a cliche because I feel like every American realizes it when they get over there. Like even with all of its problems, and it has a ton of problems, like it just made me realize what a rip-off society we live in and like how fucked everything is. Like there's just little things that make life a little bit more pleasant are like still preserved in like various European countries. Like the food is better. Like, I know like, coof juice is bad and stuff, but like even in Berlin, which is partly gentrified, like you go to a bar, you go to a club, you can just walk in like, the Späti, like the mini mart, and it's like a euro for like a German beer, which is like, good and not like fucking Budweiser. I don't know, just a lot of things, and the prices are like going through the roof. Like the job market sucks. Like, every city is becoming kind of this dystopian have and have not kind of cyber dystopia. Like we're just a fucking mess. So like, are we really gonna, if the axis of resistance really, pushes for us? We already have one war going on that, rough week for Zelensky, right? The servant of the people. I think his
well, that's
the shot
thing,
clock
like,
just started on his great patriotic war. I think not looking good for the Slava Ukraini brigades.
And I mean, I feel like the empire is receding. We're definitely, our empire is in decline. It's about that time where we can't really sustain this too much longer. We're gonna have to. I mean, that's the thing. Like, what's gonna happen if like Hezbollah gets in it? What's gonna it's a big possibility. Then the U.S. is gonna have to come and get involved. Like, I mean, they probably already are. I'm planning on it, no matter what. So yeah,
but a direct like U.S. boots on the ground in like Israel would be a huge change in the past, because we prop up their military and their government, give them tons of aid, but like they've always been like, we can handle this ourselves, like kind of shit.
Yeah.
And so there's always been, that would be a huge show of like the weakness of the IDF if like Marines had to deploy and like fight with them or something like that, and then of course they have a bunch of illegal nuclear weapons, which is also amazing, and like allegedly a Samson option where, was it that I think, did Cy Hirsch report this back in the day, but I mean, always like grain of salt, but that they had threatened, maybe this was during the 6 Days War or the Yom Kippur War.
They threatened to like bomb the Soviet Union, which would then blame it on the U.S. and annihilate that's a story of
basically like end the world with nuclear, like an apocalyptic nuclear war if they're about to be overthrown, which is like cool. Thank you. That's a very cool attitude to have. Glad we let them get nukes. Like, this is like probably one of the most bloodthirsty regimes in the world that illegally has nuclear weapons. So you just got to throw that in the mix. That complicates things a lot, because, if you go down the road of like the Zionist, sort of regime, as it were, ever coming to an end, like there are some fanatical people that probably, high up in the military and the government, there's some like outright fascist people. Once again, this is like in the bosom of one of America's greatest allies, just like Ukraine.
Yeah.
There's all these fascists that we've been enabling for years.
Yeah. I mean, the right wing in Israel, and there really is no meaningful Israeli left to speak of.
It doesn't seem that
one
way
in the United States, but
well, they're a little brother, so it makes sense that.
They're the little Satan. So they're absolutely they're maniacal. They're completely bloodthirsty.
And even if they succeed, like, where's that going to leave them? I mean, every country neighboring them is like not going to forgive them for what they do. Like, I mean, it's already a little past the road of like mere, forgiveness, but like, especially this time, I feel like, if they basically give a middle finger to the whole world.
It's hard to see like what's going to happen. I mean, I feel like people need to stand, like, I feel like, we'll see. It's hard to imagine them going against the United States, maybe Iran, but I don't know. But it seems like people need to stand up, like, if they're really gonna go through with just killing like 1 million people more, like 1 million civilians, like, which I don't know, like, are forcibly expelling them into a tent city in the desert, like, I guess is maybe the
like
idea.
The biggest ethnic cleansing since probably World War II.
So
I mean, bigger than the original Nakba.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
a very upsetting situation.
It is. I think we're gonna like return to it properly. Sort of. I think we're both gonna be monitoring it closely, and I think when there's like a real productive angle for us to take, I think we're gonna do a proper like full episode kind of dive. But yeah, as it stands right now, I think we just have to push back against the propaganda in whatever capacity, you can. Like, I don't want to overstate the significance of that, but I feel like, I don't know, a lot of Americans have a mistaken view of like Israel and Palestine and like what's gone on in that region. It has been like heavily sort of pounded into our brains in like both subtle and explicit ways, our entire lives for the past 75 odd years, that, they're just like us. They're the only democracy in the region. They have an amazing society. These Palestinians are fanatical animals that, just hate them because they're Jews. And like, that's why this is all happening. And like all these kind of things like that. Or, the lies that I hear repeated from people that, I wouldn't even consider like, oh, they're Zionist or like they're, racist at all. But like, oh, well, why don't the other Arab countries, like, none of them want the Palestinians? Like, just there's casual things like that get repeated like all the time that are very easily refutable. Like, yeah, if the Palestinians like want to stop being oppressed so much, like, why don't the other Arab countries take them in? It's like, well, because that's the whole beef. It's their land. They don't want to leave. Like, if they leave, they're never going to be let back in. So, like, they would have to accept that's the whole conflict, is that their land was stolen, and then, like, oh, well, they've had, 20 years to build their own society, and look how poor they are. Like, and it's like, they literally are under a blockade.
There
was no country. There was no country called Palestine. I've seen people fucking saying this, like, like, there was no country called Palestine. Like, okay, there were a lot of places that weren't called a specific name, but like had people living on them. Like, it's
Palestine
their land.
Palestine was called Palestine.
Yes. It actually was never called Israel. Right?
Well, I guess like an ancient history, maybe. But it's certainly the state of Israel. Definitely like post dates like that area being known as Palestine, like British Mandatory Palestine. That's what they called it. They didn't call it British Mandatory Israel.
Exactly. It's just once you start going down the list, you can start to break through some of that, and I feel like that's been, I don't know, productive. Like talking to people who are kind of like, oh, I'm not so sure about that, and like kind of breaking it down. I was just talking to my friend who, like, he went on a trip to Israel, and he was always very like normie pilled about Israel. Maybe like a year and a half ago, he went there, and I just saw him. We were talking about this, and like that trip straight up like kind of radicalized him like towards the Palestinian cause, because he saw like, oh, this is an apartheid state. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is like a fucked up police state society where these people are like boxed in with checkpoints, like harassed regularly by like IDF soldiers. Like, the people in Gaza, like they have no water now, but like their water was severely restricted before that.
Turned off. Like,
this is like intolerable. And like, my friend went to the West Bank like multiple times over the course of a week, and he met Muslims, he met Christians, and like, he asked all of them like, who are you more, because some of them, like, they're not huge fans of Hamas. Like, not everybody is. It's not synonymous with the whole Palestine thing. But he'd ask, like, well, who are you more afraid of? Like, the sort of Islamic radical, terrorist groups, or Israel? And, like, without hesitation, every single one of them is like, are you kidding me? Like, no, Israel. Like, the fucking IDF. They're the ones that are, like, killing us constantly. Like, I think I had a history teacher in high school who was just, like, a white guy who went on a trip with his wife like in the 80s and the 90s. And I remember him telling my class that, and it was like, I mean, I was already like a little bit pilled at that point, but it was surprising to hear it from kind of like a normie, like Catholic school teacher guy, and he's like, it's a fucking apartheid state. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, my wife and I were shocked. Like, I couldn't believe how they treat them like dogs. Like, it's absolutely fucked up. Like, blah, blah, blah. So I think, like, some of the Americans that are so, like, rah about it, like, have never been there. And then, unfortunately, I think the propaganda efforts of things like birthright, because I've known many American Jews who, who wants to refuse a cool free trip to like a foreign country,
like,
right?
You always have a home here. Like, this is where you belong. Like,
no, but I remember mutual friends of ours. Like, one of our friends was sussed out by birthright years ago, and he'd always talk about it. And I remember he said at one point that, like, after they did all this fun stuff and blah, 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 they lined everybody up and they said, all right, if you feel like that you identify more as like Jewish than American, like, step forward. And like at the end of the trip, like, everybody in the group stepped forward except for him, because he's like, I had fun. Like, he wasn't necessarily like, oh my God, horrified, but like he just was like, what? Like, I'm an American.
Like, you guys are taking it too far.
Yeah, you guys are tripping. Like, you're getting psyoped, basically.
Too much. Yeah.
And so then, and I always hear that, like, they're always trying to get everybody to like fuck and like fall in love on birthright and stuff, so that they then like have a love story and they move to Israel on a kibbutz and get married and have many, many children and so many of the
they have like IDF soldiers, like, that's a thing, like, flirt to, get people to, flirt to convert type stuff.
Oh my God. And we know about the thirst trap TikTok IDF girls. And I mean, all the way up to, like, you could argue Gal Gadot is kind of like the ultimate.
Yeah, it's just the ultimate.
And so, there's that element as well, where they get a very one-sided view of Israel, and then they come back and they become like a lot of people will come back almost a little bit like
I feel
brainwashed.
Like Birthright is like more of like a propaganda tour than the tour that we went on in North Korea. Like, it's at least like on
sounds
par.
like it.
Like,
it's much more. I mean, no like Westerner.
Yeah, none of them are like planning on
like,
them to like donate like a bunch of money, like, and always vote for pro North Korea politicians. There's no option of that.
Pro Juche,
So,
whatever. Yeah, they just want you to like.
Is more so,
they want to give you a positive impression of North Korea, and maybe hopefully like people will come back and not be frothing like anti-DPRK ideologues, but like. Their expectations are set realistically, but in Israel they're like, no, we can and
make
then
Aliyah,
exactly. And then when you look at on CNN and MSNBC and all this shit, like, well, first of all, so many of the IDF spokespeople, they're all American. Like, you notice that they're American accents, and then also on like TikTok and Instagram and stuff, you have all these kind of like influencer accounts. Particularly of people that are living, like millennials, that are like living on kibbutzes right next to Gaza, that also sound like they're from fucking New Jersey.
Making these day in the life videos, being
oh my God. I saw this one woman that's like, oh my God. And she was like totally American. Like, do you hear that? That is the sound of our brave IDF jets pounding the terrorists into dust. It is like holy music. And it's like, you're a fucking American.
Meanwhile, saying like, I'm going to move out of here to, because I can't, deal with the bomb sound, so I'm happy to get it. But it is beautiful to hear. Yeah, and like making those videos, it's like 8 a.m., wake up and make bread for our amazing IDF soldiers. Like 9 a.m.
Gluten-free.
Realize that we need much more flour so that we can get, more bread to our amazing troops who are defending us all. It's like...
It creeps me out how fucking American these people are, because it's exactly how they would be acting here if like something sort of similar happened, that like actually we had done something fucked up, but then you know what I mean? Like it's so culturally translatable to like American culture, and it has the same kind of like blinders on to like, oh, I might actually, like, our country might be participating in something very horrific and unjust. And it's just like, oh my God, like, support the troops.
That's the incredibly fucked up thing about it, because it's like, any, like, me, for instance, I'm Jewish on my mom's side. I'm halakhically Jewish. Yes. So, like, somehow I, having never been to Israel or to Palestine, have, like, more of a right to, like, the house of someone whose family has lived there for like 5 generations than they do, because like I'm Jewish.
That's the right of
that's
return.
Like that's
and Palestinians.
That's their idea of like
do
birthright citizenship, but they are denied. The right of return is the right to return to the homes people were evicted from during the Nakba, which they're denied, right?
Okay,
Whereas,
So they don't have the right to go back to the land their family has lived on for maybe centuries, but you can just pop in as like an American because you're half
right. You can claim it because you're Jewish, basically.
Did they let people that are not halak, like Mishlings that are have like a Jewish dad? Are they allowed?
I think that it's like vacillated like over time. I think that they have had like varying rules. Like I'd have to look it up. I think so. Any Jew who immigrates to Israel as an Ola under the law of return automatically becomes an Israeli citizen. A Jew means a person born to a Jewish mother or someone who is converted to Judaism and does not adhere to another religion. So that's what Wikipedia says anyway. It extends to any children or grandchildren of a Jew, as well as a spouse of a Jew, or the spouse of a child or grandchild of a Jew. A Jew who voluntarily converts to another religion forfeits their right to claim citizenship. Oh, because I guess I can't. Never mind.
Did your mom convert? Oh,
no,
well, you
converted.
But
I did.
You convert. Well, you reverted.
Yeah.
But what if you revert?
Well,
does that count?
I believe that. I prefer the term convert anyway. But but so I guess if you voluntarily convert to another religion, you forfeit your right to claim citizenship under this provision. That's according to Wikipedia, so I assume that's like more or less accurate. 21% of the total Jewish population in Israel is born overseas.
Oof. I mean, and those are the people that like really have less of a claim than anybody to be there, and they're the ones moving on to like the most, I guess I would assume, the most recently stolen Palestinian land, like right next to this walled off
radical, like
prison
right-wing
city.
Settlers coming in. I've known people who like were Americans who like went to go into the IDF. Of course, once like I found out about this, I was like, "Fuck off! Like, get out of my life."
Yeah.
But,
well, no, I mean, I've talked to like Jewish friends who like I think there's many cases of this where, regardless how they feel, they might have like cousins or like in-laws or something like that, like living in Israel. But like, even I guess a lot of Israelis regard the hardcore Orthodox and like the settlers as kind of like crazy people, like they're nut jobs and stuff. But it's kind of like, but like Netanyahu's leading the government and like, I don't know, like if you think those guys are crazy, maybe like you should do something to like stop, not, I don't know. It's kind of, I'm sure there's complex political things there, but given that there was this huge fight over like the judicial reforms and stuff and all these like kind of liberal, like Tel Aviv people were protesting, that puzzled me at the beginning of the year. Cause I'm like, what are they really fighting about over there? Because it seems like none of the major pressing issues that are really affecting Israeli society, like the Palestinian situation, are like everyone's on the same page about Palestine. That like, we should just keep them locked up and like, heavily policed and bombarded by the IDF and like not think about it. Like even the libs were kind of like that, and maybe this is a harsh wake up call that's not a viable way. Like it's like if you're a kind of a liberal, like South African during the apartheid era, and it's like, oh yeah, like you're not personally racist, but like, and you think the Rhodesians are nutters, but like you're also kind of just kicking back and like not, you're not down with like the ANC or like giving equal rights to black people, like, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of that vibe. So I don't know. I think it, like you said, it doesn't seem to be like a real left. Like decades ago it seemed like, I mean, they did have a Labor Party, but I feel like when's the last time the Labor Party was in power in Israel? Like 20-30 years, like, and even then it was like not a super left-wing Labor Party. I mean, it's a pretty right-wing country that is, I think, despite its like historical connection to the Soviet Union, and of course the Soviet Union, I think, like, co-signed Israel's creation, which I think it later regretted because then it became pretty pro-Palestinian later on, But I think they've been a very anti-communist country, obviously very anti-pan-Arab. Any kind of like progressive movement of the 20th century and now into the 21st, like Israel can be counted on, much like the other offspring of, American neocolonialism, Liberia is like an outpost of American interests in a region where a lot of other people have interests, and like not everybody's, immediately on our side, but there's always this like little country founded by settlers that kind of impose themselves as first-class citizens on the rest of the population that was already living there, where they will, stan the United States and always stick with them. But in the case of Israel got a much better deal than Liberia at the end of the day. I don't think you're going to see a weird like George Bush like turning the back on, Israel and let them get destroyed, for mysterious reasons, kind of thing like he did with Liberia.
No, the geopolitical value of Israel. Joe Biden has that, line where he says like, if Israel didn't exist, the United States would have to invent Israel.
Exactly.
Because that's how valuable it is. It's the geopolitical advantage that it provides. So,
and that's we've been benefiting off of that, and then the Israelis have been benefiting off our largesse for decades now. We have this sick symbiotic relationship, which is, I feel like I don't know, morally deleterious to both societies in a way. Like I think there's just so much dark energy that has to go along with supporting this kind of like apartheid system of brutality and the mentalities that need to be sort of formed in the population to keep on, endorsing that. Like,
yes.
It goes, that leads, that's like poisonous for a society, and like draws it away from whatever its better virtues could be. And the same thing with like the hypocrisy of like America going around the world and being this like leader of democracy and all this bullshit, in addition to all the other fucked up things we do. Like, it's always been one of the most glaring contradictions is like we support Israel doing whatever it wants, and it's like the biggest, maybe not the, there's probably other it might be the last really big formal like apartheid state that we just like full-throatedly support, even after the Cold War.
It's the only one that comes to mind. Certainly it's the most glaring example of like a truly apart. And what's happening now is completely unconscionable and is horrifying. And it's just completely soul-freezing to see everyone just look away and let it happen.
Yeah.
Or
post TikToks about like do like Amy Schumer shit, like
or even cheer it on and like somehow have this like people are incredibly MK'd in the United States where they literally like, and I think it attests to Netanyahu's point where the day of 9/11 he said that it was quote very good, not good, but what he meant was that it would create, sympathy and understanding of the problem of terrorism. And I think that that is part of it, where people like, just imagine like a Muslim in a balaclava, and then like their brains just deactivate, like, they have their like Manchurian candidate trigger, and it makes them just imagine that like anything is possible, like any like incredible like atrocity or insane like lurid bizarre like a story without any kind of substantiation must be true, and
40 beheaded babies,
the 40 and I'm not saying that like there aren't people in Hamas who are sociopaths who like, are like traumatized, not to say that it certainly explains it, it doesn't necessarily excuse, killing civilians. Like, obviously, I oppose that, but like like some of the stuff that is just being like repeated ad nauseum without any actual proof of any of it. And it literally just doesn't even make practical sense.
Yeah,
no,
it doesn't really make sense. Like it's designed to kind of break your brain with like, oh my god, that's so sick and like random and like what the fuck, like that you just like have to support whoever's like fighting back against that, And
yeah,
the
and
80s and 90s
this
action
image
movies.
that like they were systematically going around like slitting babies' throats,
Yeah.
which definitely like again, I definitely don't think that like Hamas is like, I mean, they might be more moral than the IDF, but they're certainly, they're I wouldn't claim for them what the IDF claims for itself, which is the most moral military in the world. It's based on the only way that they can try to justify what their revenge has been is by like sort of using this idea that it was personal, like that they were like, oh yeah, like we killed like 500 babies, at a distance, but they actually went up to the babies and slit their throats on purpose because that's how much they hate Jews. And they're like, the Itamar attack and things like that stuff did happen. So I'm not saying that there aren't like depraved people who, are totally desensitized and traumatized after seeing babies like being killed constantly and living in total immiseration in Gaza who would be capable of something like that. But to say that this is like something that systematically happened, like it's obviously like designed to make it somehow proportional to then turn around and kill, 4,000 babies or pregnant
They definitely
women.
killed more babies now.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And certainly prior to that. So it's, and like the fact is that like this is being like as deliberate strategy when, while I wouldn't dispute that children were killed and that there might even have been children killed deliberately, I doubt this was like a systematic plan, and this is mostly,
there were also like civilian kind of vigilantes that when they broke the fence down, a lot of people kind of went in, and there might have been some kind of anarchic like massacres as well. Again, not ruling out that like civilians were definitely killed, but like there is a larger context here, and it didn't just start on October 7th, and like it's like we really want to talk about baby killing. That's been going on for quite some time, and it's like pretty stacked on one side. And I think if you ask most of the world, they would probably support some kind of like sending like UN peacekeepers into like, I don't know, peacefully like dismantle the Zionist regime and like keep everyone from slaughtering each other for a while to like establish something. You know what I mean? Like in an ideal world. But of course with the US, that's never going to happen. And the EU, like, they would never consent to anything remotely like that happening. So you're left with this like hyper aggressive military that definitely takes a thrill out of slaughtering civilians as like a matter of policy, and the U.S. backing them up. So it's very fucked up. But we'll circle back, I think, depending on how everything goes, and like if there's specifically a kind of like a deep dive angle that we could illuminate. But again, we're stuck
I'd
waiting
want to
and
do
seeing
something
right
that
now.
was, I mean, obviously, like there's a lot of important history there, but it would be interesting to see like if there's a particular story that would be interesting to tell. But it's just, it's a raw, dark subject. It's very dispiriting. It's very, it's infuriating. It's heartbreaking. Yeah, it's awful. Just awful. And everyone pray for Palestine because,
Definitely.
You're listening and watching. These are images of Gaza City as the bombs light up the night sky there. We're hearing what sounds like a call to prayer, even some sirens a few moments ago, as the bombs are dropping right now. This is the population center of Gaza. About almost 600,000 people live here. And the intensity of the bombardment seems to have picked up just in the last couple of minutes as we've been speaking to you and watching these images. It's a sign, according to my guest here, Aaron Cohen, that potentially this is picking up. And as he says, as you've said, Aaron, perhaps a sign that this ground invasion could be imminent, as is the Israeli Defense Forces are moving more aggressively, it seems, tonight to prepare to soften this ground for the some 300,000 troops who are amassed along the border, get ready to go in.
That's right. And Gaza is an incredibly densely populated area. Hamas has had years to keep building it up. This is one of the most dangerous places on earth. I just want to make it really clear, the Israelis, as an IDF soldier, as a veteran of the IDF, we don't have an issue with the Palestinians. And we want to do what we can to get Hamas away from them. And so we're going to use as much selectivity. The difference with the footage that you were showing is that we're not going to indiscriminately hurt anybody. However, lines have been crossed and decisions have been made. Leadership will roll. Intelligence heads will be gone. We don't want to focusing on that right now, but this is the most significant hostage siege in the history of modern warfare.
Let's talk about that for a second. Again, I mean, the hostages. Is it necessary for there to be surgical operations to try to find and free those hostages prior to any kind of more large-scale ground invasion of the IDF?
Yes, it is critical to continue to soften as much of the Hamas infrastructure within Khan Yunis, within Rafah, within Gaza City, and all of the small villages in between, in order to reduce risk to those larger infantry units that are going to move into Gaza.
All right. Well, we came here to do some Q&A questions.
Yeah.
So maybe let's. We're at 1 hour. I think it's as good a time
okay,
as
that's
any.
about as long as it usually takes us to start. So let's.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little longer than today, but why don't I read the first one, which is from frequent grotto head, Doug Person 05. This is from December 9th, 2021. Wow. A different era, really. But he asks, what if something was new under the sun?
Interesting. What if something was new under the sun? I don't know. I mean, I think in a way everything is kind of new under the sun to the same extent that it is that there ain't nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
I think that it's important when talking about history not to generalize things and not to suggest that everything is always the same or following certain cycles, and that to conflate any two given events or phenomena. So that's an important counterbalance, I think. But also, there certainly is, obviously, there's the fact that a lot of what happens does have precedent in some way, even the things that appear to be truly novel and truly shockingly unprecedented. There often is some kind of precedent for them or something that anticipates them. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Yeah, who said that?
I want to say
George Lucas?
Mark. I want to say Marx, but now I might be totally misattributing that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it doesn't sound super dialectical, but
doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. It's coming up when I Google it. Mark Twain once said that.
Okay, Mark Twain, Marx. You could see how I get that mixed up.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, kind of our American Marx, Mark Twain. At least in the one-liners. Yeah. No, I would generally agree with everything you said. I mean, also, I feel like it's maybe a good opportunity to point out for, any listeners that weren't listening from the very earliest episodes, what what is this inside joke that we keep referring to when we say there ain't nothing new under the sun?
Yeah,
it's even
true.
on
It's
our
kind
in
of
this
like
house
deep
sign.
lore. Yeah.
It is deep lore, deep SJ lore, but I unfortunately I can't remember exactly the episode number where we first stumbled upon this gem, but I feel like it was maybe our first UFO
I believe that
episode.
it was the Giants episode where we were talking about the two mics.
We were talking about the two mics, yeah.
Yeah, I think because I want to say that was the first time we talked about the two mics, because weren't they the ones talking about the Giants a little bit?
No. They don't really get into Giants discourse fully. So I feel like there was somebody similar to the two mics that I think we were. I cut the keep your eyes on the skies. That guy. But that wasn't the two mics.
He wasn't one of the two mics? I thought that he was a guest on the two mics.
For those who don't know, the Two Mics podcast kind of came out in arguably the same wave as SJ did in terms of like the class of 2020 in terms of podcasts that debuted around the same time as us. And I was always a little fascinated with it because it is hosted by two mics, two guys named Mike, and one of them is former CIA station chief and analyst Mike Scheuer, who ran the Alex station before 9/11. And I think at this point, he's been dramatized in several movies and miniseries. But at this point, had become like a very strange, like paleo-conservative crank, and was hosting a podcast with his buddy, Colonel Mike, who never gives his last name and like makes weird references all the time to like doing covert ops in like Central and South America in the 80s. So, the film, do with that what you will. But I mean, it was weird where it's like this guy who is a real character in the broader narrative around 9/11 and Osama bin Laden and everything. But now he's like an old boomer at like a coffee shop with like his other old retired boomer, like special ops killer friend, just sort of like being pissed. And like they were really into QAnon stuff, I think, back when they started. And now they've migrated a little bit. I was also really interested in Mike Scheuer because he eventually married Alfreda Bukowski, who I think was the CIA analyst at Alex Station, who the Jessica Chastain character in Zero Dark 30, that great CIA propaganda movie, was kind of based on. But then if you look at other work people have done, like she actually played like a really sus role in like not sharing information with the FBI like before 9/11. Like there's weird, and then she became the head of like the global jihad unit for like the CIA during Obama, and it's like wait, he's married to her, who like went on, he kind of left the CIA and like retired and became kind of an oddball, but like she was very high up, and it's like, what are their dinner conversations like? Like I can only fucking imagine. But and then he's doing this podcast. Like, what does she think about his podcast where he's just like going off about like random bullshit? And I think specifically, I don't know the context in which it came up, but I feel like this is like our first or second UFO kind of fake disclosure kind of episode. They were talking, like Colonel Mike was saying, like, I was just, reading something or watching a fucking YouTube video about how he's like, well, you see, like Colonel Mike, like, so back, I was reading about the Hegelian dialectic, and that's when you get the communists, the Marxists, they start funding Antifa and radical groups to do terrorist attacks, and then that gets all the regular people to give away their freedoms. Like he gave this ridiculous kind of like ahistorical like thing, and then at the end of this like long insane monologue, like Colonel Mike just goes, "Wow, Dr. Mike, ain't nothing new under the sun."
Yeah, exactly. It was like the Hegelian dialectic.
The Hegelian dialect ain't nothing new under the sun, Dr. Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it just stuck with us. So we started saying
I think it was much earlier than our first UFO, like this fake disclosure episode. I feel like it really was the Giants one, but it might not have been about Giants. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
But
I think Giants was number 10 or 11. Our first
really
Elwara episode on Patreon, actually.
It was really early on. But
a good one, though. A good one, the Giants
yes,
ep.
for sure.
But that's where, and then we kind of invoke it every time there's an opportunity basically to say it. But I guess we're kind of doing an irony because we're not seriously asserting that there ain't nothing new under the sun, even though there is a grain of truth to that. I think, like you said,
entirely new under the sun. Nothing is entirely under the sun. Yeah. So,
but I think we also sometimes we invoke that to make fun of like lazy historical analogies that like are too like direct the way that Dr. Mike was doing. And when people react like, wow, yeah, exactly, ain't nothing new under the sun. Like it's exactly like it was, thousands of years ago or something like that. Clearly, there are new things under the sun, and but I think it's kind of dialectical, right? Like I think as Mark Twain said,
Hegelian dialectic.
Oh yeah, the Hegelian dialectic, which is also it's like it's when Antifa funds like a Black Lives Matter and like Islamic extreme. It's like literally like none of these things existed when Hegel was around. Like okay, like and it's not even. I get he's repeating a kind of Alex Jones thing a little bit where. I saw a clip going around where
the other side of the Hegelian dialectic was it like the establishment Democrats, like what was one side
rhinos,
and Antifa was the other side, or was it the rhinos?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, because they hate the rhinos. And
I feel like it was kind of like a strategy of tension thing that they were like.
That's what they were really talking about. They were talking about like Gladio, but instead they're like, oh, this is when the globalists do the Hegelian dialectic to like put communists in power. It was like
or like everyone gets so scared of like BLM that they have to like vote for Joe Biden for some reason. I don't get. I don't
kind of
remember.
like it was some stupid thing like that, and
the Hegelian dialectic. Yeah, exactly. You got the thesis, you got the antithesis, and then you got the synthesis. You got the Aufheben. The
Aufheben. Dr. Mike. Yeah, I think it's funny because there was just an old video like right after 9/11 of Alex Jones invoking the Hegelian dialectic, talking about kind of Israel and Palestine and how. Israel, like in a way that was kind of like, somewhat critical of Israel, and everyone's like, "Wow, Alex Jones, he's actually based," like and stuff. And just so people know, this is tangential, but I was driving from the Bay Area back to L.A. last week. I decided to check in on our old friend AJ, another. I think reference since episode 1 on this show, and just see what he was saying about it. And it was the weirdest thing. First of all, like I don't know if he has multiple young guys that fill in for him, but I feel like I tuned into the one that was like on I think Monday, like right on like the 9th or the 10th. And this young dude, I don't know if it was Harrison Smith or not. I'd have to go back and check. But whoever this fucker was, he was like launching like. He was Zioshilling folks. Like he was just going off about how Palestinians are like retarded because they practice cousin marriage and therefore they're not smart enough to like peaceably resolve conflicts. So that's why they do terrorism. And Israel's basically justified in doing whatever it is. This is like the replacement host for Alex Jones. Then it's like, then I went back and like Alex Jones was doing a kind of what he typically does like right after the attack. And this is on the Sunday show where he's like, look, like, the globalists are they're behind all of it. Like, I've talked to Mossad people. There was a stand down order, like, and shit like that, which a lot of people are saying, by the way. Like, I'm not discounting that aspect. It's very weird that none of the shit worked. Like I don't know. It's very strange.
I could see, like, there are definitely cases of Netanyahu being like, oh, we want them to do an attack that will let us, like, go in, like, he definitely, I could see it being, like, as far as I would go, it would be, like, kind of a lie hop type of thing that, like, went out of control.
Yeah, that was bigger than, they thought it would be. And, Hamas themselves have said that the operation blew up into a much bigger thing than they had initially sort of planned on it being. And like it was almost more successful than they had planned for. And maybe they thought, oh, they're going to do a little incursion attack and then we'll wipe them out and then people will be scared for a little bit and, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't anticipate that like when they actually got into confrontation with IDF soldiers that like they would lose. And like the Hamas soldiers would like outfight them or they would run away or something like that. So I think, and it would take days to sort of, take all of them out or whatever, take back their territory. So I think like it seems like, the kind of, the lie hop feels a little bit more kind of plausible because, they would. And you could see how Netanyahu could derive some benefit, but also that maybe it blew up bigger than this thing kind of like spun out of control a little bit and ended up like being a much more of like an existential assault that sent the country into like 9/11 mode, and I don't know. But also, okay, getting back to Alex Jones real quick. Then a few days later, I listened to, I think it was Harrison Smith on the first hour, and he's talking about like how Israel's like a fascist state, and like they've been oppressing the Palestinians for years, and like the whole first hour, he's being like very oddly pro-Palestinian, like generally speaking. But then Alex Jones comes on the second hour and he starts ranting. It's really the worst thing about this conflict is that it's affecting him.
I have been supportive of Israel for many years. When I found out what they do, shooting little Palestinian children in the genitalia and laughing, it's on video. Little 10-year-olds walk around throwing rocks at tanks. A guy's top a half mile away and blows their testicles off. They call them Goyim. They call them dogs. They call the Arabs cattle. And then the corrupt Arab governments that are in league with this government. It's really a sick Hegelian dialectic, order out of chaos.
A lot of the wars, a lot of the stuff happening in the Middle East is because of the Israeli lobby, one of the most powerful in the United States. And then they brag about this. It's called a conspiracy theory here in the U.S.
Ban the ADL trending. No, we're not like the ADL. We don't want to ban people and arrest people. But your bizarre behavior is causing this. Let us control our countries and stop them coming here. Don't have the ADL attack me. Don't you point your finger at me trying to survive and live and say I'm the bad person. I reject that. And I'm sick of you opening our damn borders up to bring all these people in and brainwash them against us because I'm white. I'm not a person that's in identity politics, but you've made it that way. Everywhere it's bad because I'm white. Everywhere it's bad because I'm Christian. Everywhere I don't deserve to have a job because of what color I am. Everywhere I'm a bad person. No. Muslims, you're doubling your numbers every 30 years. You're taking over. On average, you're the biggest welfare recipients in every country. You come milk the system. You have 6 kids, and you come to my country, and you tell me I'm bad because of what color I am, or I'm a Christian. Leave me alone. Get off my yard. It's the same thing for the ADL, and the same thing for the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and all you guys. You're discredited your jokes. Any real Nazi, you support him. Like the one, an actual SS officer that actually rounded up and killed Jews in mass, getting standing ovations a few weeks ago. And has he been arrested? Has he been hauled back to Israel? No. They only haul back Alzheimer patients because they can't defend themselves. When it's a real Nazi, you don't grab them because that'd be a little embarrassing for the U.S. and Canadian government, wouldn't it? And the Vatican and the rat lines. I know way too much. And I will not sit here and be the villain to the Muslims, or the villain to the leftist Jews, or the villain to Black Lives Matter, or the villain to anybody else. I've done nothing to any of you. I just want to live my life and be productive and be a good person. Leave me alone and leave my kids alone. And stop trying to chop their balls off. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm loaded for bear.
Basically, and that he's pissed off at these left-wing Jews that are always saying I'm an anti-Semite. I always stood behind Israel and shit like that. And like then he talks about how like the Muslims are at the bottom of his list in terms of people he doesn't like because they're always trying to get him on his knees to accept Allah. Like I'm not getting on my knees and accepting Allah. Okay, I'm not doing it. He's like he respects at least the Jews don't try to convert him into their own religion. They have their own thing going on. He can respect that. Yeah. But so he was coming down more on the side. I mean, he'd always be like, I'm not defending Israel. But like he kind of was. And so I don't know what's going on at InfoWars. I mean, it's worth reminding for people that want to jump on and be like, Alex Jones is based. He's like, he said some things sympathetic to Palestine in 2001. He has more of a reputation, I feel like, from many quarters of like being accused of being a low key kind of like down with Zionism and like shilling for Israel from time to time.
Definitely, yeah. I mean,
like he sort of leaves them out of his grand conspiracy equation and tends to not. Which, at a certain point, like to a certain degree, you're like, okay, well, it's good that he's not like a raving anti-Semite like a lot of other right-wing conspiracy theorists, but then it's like the only reason he's not is because like he loves Israel, which is like the case with a lot of American right-wing people, right? It's like they're very careful to not be anti-Semitic, and like a big part of that is really because like they love Israel, and like they'll be racist towards other groups, and very much towards Muslims. But Alex Jones kind of laid it out there.
It's not like the case that you can't support Israel while being anti-Semitic. We don't want to conflate these two things, because there's a lot of people who are anti-Semitic and support Israel.
Oh yeah,
in fact,
exactly.
Yeah, and there's actually kind of a symbiotic relationship between Zionism and anti-Semitism in a way.
I know you've brought this up before, because like the Zionist sort of state needs there to be the more anti-Semitism around the world, like kind of the better, because then more people are going to move to Israel, and they need more people to come in and settle it.
That's part of the logic, right? That's part of the justification for its existence, right? So it's like a rhetorical thing where it's like, the more anti-Semitism there's the more reason why like Israel must exist to protect Jews from, what might happen to them if they didn't have their own state. So there definitely is that kind of, and certainly there's plenty of people that we've seen over the course of this week who like are definitely anti-Semitic, who still hate Muslims more, and value Palestinian lives less.
Yeah. Definitely people that like traffic and kind of casual anti-Semitism. Like I think the sort of like BAP types, like Red Scare types, kind of fit into that category, but they also like love Zionism. And so it's like, they literally,
most
it's not
Hindu
even some
fascists, I would suggest.
These are people that like love like SS imagery and all that kind of shit. And so, which I feel like is inherently anti-Semitic, like, given the historical context
BAP
of it.
loves Hitler, like straight up, and a lot of these people are like just Holocaust deniers. Yeah. And yet, or like Israel has the moral high ground here. It's like, the Holocaust didn't happen. What possible? And I'm not saying that. Let me be very clear, because I was accused of my own mother of denying the Holocaust over, just simply saying that Israel shouldn't kill a million people. Let me be emphatically clear that the Holocaust is extensively documented, one of the most well-documented genocide history. By no means would I ever deny it. But there are straight up Holocaust deniers who are supporting Israel. So it's
Holocaust revisionists like Bibi Netanyahu, who's been going around saying that the Muslims in Palestine convinced Hitler to do Told literally, I've seen the speech of that. Like he literally was saying that it was the Grand Mufti told he's like, oh, should I just kick out all the Jews? And he's like, oh, no, because then they're all going to come here. And then Hitler's like, well, what should I do with them? And he's like, burn them. And it's like, okay, that conversation literally did not fucking happen. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's literally how Hitler got the idea to like do that. Shut the fuck up. Like, that is Holocaust revisionism. Inviting a Ukrainian SS war criminal to the Canadian Parliament and applauding him is Holocaust celebration, basically. Like, it's beyond revisionism. It's like literally celebrating people who literally did the Holocaust. And there's other things we can get. I just talked in the latest Demon Forces about how like all these Nazi like SS like big shots that got saved by the CIA after the war, people like Otto Skorzeny like ended up in Israel training the Mossad, and also training Arabs too. But like, there definitely was a breakdown. I think we talked about it in our Martin Bormann episode also, about how he did a lot of like, allegedly did a lot of business with like Jewish businessmen in like South America. And like that, I've seen a thing going around. This might be an interesting topic for an episode about Hannah Arendt and her getting kicked out of Israel during the Eichmann trial because she was writing things about how there was a relationship between like the Israeli government and Eichmann, like in the years when he was in exile. Like they had a covert relationship, and that was part of the reason why they wanted to bring him back to Israel so much, is because they could kind of like excise that from the record. And then she started talking about it, and then they're like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like, I know we've kind of bagged on Arendt before in a lot of ways, but that might be one case where she was really onto something. And so there's that kind of dark, like even before World War II, like certain Zionist groups, and like I want to say definitively because I have to really go back and like I want to kind of triple check everything because topics like these things get thrown around a lot. But it does seem there to some extent there was like, I mean, there was maybe an alignment of interest of the Zionists want all the Jews to move to Palestine, the Nazis want to get rid of all the Jews. Like there's a possible alignment of interest there that was like explored to some extent. Obviously, it didn't end up going down that way. Like they opted for basically death camps and death squads and things like that. But there was a kind of, hey, maybe there's a mutually beneficial solution to all this because like what we really want. And then of course one of like the tragic ironies is like the Holocaust itself like leads to the creation of Israel, which is of course like casts a whole pall over. It emotionally complicates like a lot.
It would, it would be like unfair to associate like all Zionism whole cloth with Nazism, even though like the way that Zionism has panned out in history is entirely perfidious and deserving of scorn. But certainly you're right that there are like instances of alignment to whatever extent one could like blame the Arab, like, make all Arabs or all Palestinians somehow complicit in the Holocaust in order to justify what's happening to them now. You could definitely like, it would be, by the same token, you could make associations between Zionism and Nazis for sure.
Or just kind of European supremacism, like more broadly, or kind of like
there
ethno-fascism.
Definitely were attempts to like get, to form alliances with the Nazis against the British, like Zionist militias definitely made overtures in that direction for sure. And a lot of the time, like, the Nazis were more sympathetic to the Jews who wanted to leave for obvious reasons than they were to those that wanted to stay. If you, I mean, it's a well-trodden topic, but for sure, like the image of the, the Zionist Jew is this, very muscular kind of, if you look
tough
at old
Jew,
Israeli
the badass
they look Aryan, they have blonde hair, blue eyes, like, tilling the fields, making the desert bloom, and the, the weak, old Jewish masculinity of like the Talmudic scholar is like this filthy diaspora,
or the liberal the international, like the rootless cosmopolitan Jew. I think that's what I see today with right wingers is they still kind of hate that type of Jewish person, but they love the muscular badass like Chad ethno state like Israeli Jews because like that. It appeals to them kind of like ideologically, like and
just like right wing Israelis, they hate diaspora Jews. Those who won't align themselves. In fact,
or the self-hating. I heard that thrown around a lot. I mean, like there are those like Zionist accounts that even like go after like the sort of dirtbag leftists all the time, but like in the most psychotic way possible of just like you just love like you self-hating Jew, like you love like when Israeli babies die. Like I mean, they're like they hate them because like they're critical of like Israel, and I think the fact that they're like American Jews who like don't support Israel is like extra infuriating and like despicable, and like there is definitely that dialectic going on as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at someone like historically speaking, like Max Nordau, you can definitely see like, the overlap in some of these tendencies, right? I think, he was the innovator of the concept of degenerate art, or definitely a major figure in shaping the concept of degenerate art.
Okay.
And, which later, was instrumentalized by the Nazis. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's people have pointed this out recently. Just Googling around. But I remember reading some of his work, and it definitely has that tendency. And there are a couple of like late 19th, early 20th century Zionist figures who sort of traffic in that. So there's certainly like a strain there. And I mean, if you really like, I mean, this is something that I would want to research more deeply, but someone I was talking with this with some friends, and they're talking about the Christian support for Zionism, the evangelical Christian support for Zionism. And, because obviously there's like sort of an apocalyptic or millenarian hope attached to it. And what occurred to me, as we were talking about this, was that, I'm not, again, I'd like to do more research into this, but I have a strong feeling that like the very idea of like a Jewish state in Israel I'm not certain, but it may actually creating a new state, like in modernity, like that may very well originate in sort of Protestant Christianity.
Interesting.
Or I would not be surprised if like in evangelical Christianity, that's sort of where the first stirrings of this started to kick up.
Because of its reference in Revelation, that
yeah,
right?
Or at least like that. This has always been a strong presence that's always kind of had a shaping effect on Jewish Zionism.
Interesting.
Whatever.
Yeah. That would be very interesting to look more into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was an interesting answer to Doug.
Did you finish your anecdote about Alex Jones?
That was pretty much it. That like there's like a kind of schizophrenia going on at InfoWars headquarters where like unless it would be even weirder if the same guy was Harrison Smith talking a bunch of racist stuff about Palestinian IQ, and then like 2 days later is like basically free Palestine, like Israel is a police state, they're aligned with the globalists, like they gave everybody the poison shots. It's like it's weird. And then Alex Jones is kind of like really playing both sides, but also like really shitting on Muslims. Like he's trying to play it like he's just balanced and he doesn't like Netanyahu and the Palestinians are like bad things happen to them, but he just doesn't like these Muslims, because he said they're in a weird alliance with the radical left to take over the world. Basically, he basically called out subliminal jihad as like the vanguard of like the Soros globalist plot, where like BLM and Antifa unite with like Hamas and Iran or something, but it's all part of the globalist game, basically. That's kind of what he's going. And there's a later question that'll kind of get into this with libertarian sort of conspiracy cosmology, but that's kind of where it's at now. So I'd say like hold your horses on like celebrating, pro-resistance Alex Jones for his, brave truth-telling propaganda. He's simping a little bit. He seems a little afraid to like really go for, whatever. And he keeps referencing all of his like close contacts and like, former IDF Mossad, like blah, blah, blah. So it's like, okay, you have a lot of Mossad friends. All right. Interesting. But yeah. So
yeah, in a way, this conversation does definitely pertain to the idea of whether there's anything new under the sun. Because in a way, like some of these ideas like go back to the Hebrew Bible, but a lot of them also, like in the contemporary context, can't be understood only through like the same conceptual repertoire that you would use to understand them in that context. So yeah,
exactly.
Little Betty ate a pound of aspirin. She got them from the shelf up on the wall. Betty's mommy wasn't there to save her. She didn't even hear her baby call. Dead babies can't take care of themselves. Dead babies can't take things off roses. Mommy's on the bar most every night. Little Betty's sleeping in the graveyard. Living there in burgundy and white. Dead babies can take care of themselves. Dead babies can take things off the shelf. Well, we didn't love you anyway. Little Betty. Goodbye, little Betty. So long, little Betty. So long, little Betty. Betty, so long. Dead babies can take care of themselves. Dead babies can take things off the shelf. Well, we didn't need you anyway.
All right. Do you want to move on to number 2 here?
Sure.
That's a fun one.
Let me read it. Okay. Oh wait, this is not the right Q&A. Sorry. Okay, scrolling up. What do y'all make of? Oh, sorry, not Fox Mulder asks. What do y'all make of Alice Cooper? I feel like there's a lot to unpack with the typical provocative lyrics about dead babies and necrophilia, their name coming from a Ouija board, the Alice reference, etc. Interested in your opinions. I'm a fan, but I recently was reminded that their first records were with Zappa, who seemed insistent on releasing their albums but was noticeably absent from the sessions. First record was essentially a recorded rehearsal, but Zappa said, "Record's done," after 2 hours in the studio. Got the vibe that Zappa wanted to release their stuff no matter how polished or good it was. With weird scenes in mind, I just find the start of Alice Cooper and eventual success as shock rockers possibly sus. I don't really know too much about Alice Cooper. I never really was into him. I don't know. You were doing a little bit of Alice Cooper research before the episode.
Only a very little. There's actually, I think there's a little follow-up here to the question that they also add. Also notable is that they were dressed in women's clothes early on by Zappa's sus girl group, the GTOs. And HD Case chimed in, worth noting that Alice Cooper, like Zappa, was significantly more politically and socially conservative than his peers. Always struck me as odd considering their persona and outward philosophy.
I feel like a couple of like shock type people, like isn't Gene Simmons also kind of like a right wing guy?
I think Gene Simmons might have pretty strong opinions about Israel. I think.
Maybe.
Actually I could be wrong. I haven't seen him chime in, but I think he is like, if not Israeli. No, I mean he's Jewish. I mean, he could be totally anti-Israel, but I feel like I'm vaguely remembering something kind of like macho right-wing kind of in Kiss's, or at least Gene Simmons's like personal life. But
he was a supporter of the foreign policy of the George W. Bush administration.
There you go.
During the 2006 Lebanon War, Simmons sent a televised message of support to an Israeli soldier wounded fighting in Lebanon, calling him his hero.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was right.
America is a business and should be run by a businessman.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, Alice Cooper was a little before, and I mean, yeah, maybe it's somebody to circle back to because there actually was, I was just looking through really his discography, not even reading that much. I think he does get a certain mention in Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, but I'm forgetting. He doesn't get a ton of attention, but maybe it was some people, or maybe it was just McGowan talking about Zappa signing him. I'd honestly have to go back and like name search it and see what it was. But I feel like, I mean, he didn't go in on Alice Cooper the same way he went on like Zappa or Jim Morrison or some of the other people. But the vibes of Alice Cooper are, interesting. Like Not Fox Mulder said, like provocative lyrics about dead babies and necrophilia. Though it's weird because his biggest hits are like kind of very normie, like 70s cock rock kind of tracks, like School's Out, right? Was one of the first big ones.
With Ozzy. I really don't like.
Oh, really? No. Yeah. Alice Cooper. Look at a picture of Alice Cooper. Like you'll recognize him. Like he's got a specific vibe.
Honestly, I feel like he looks a lot like Ozzy to me too.
Kind of. I mean, he has the makeup, the kind of like black teardrop kind of makeup, long hair. He is from Detroit, where so much seminal American music, from Motown to Glenn Frey to Bob Seger to Detroit techno. It's a big important city with American music. But Alice Cooper did come out of there, and I guess maybe was sort of influenced by like MC5 and the Stooges. Just listening to his first two albums, which I guess were produced by Zappa, I was kind of surprised at the more kind of like spooky art rock, psychedelic art rock kind of vibe of his earliest records. Like, let's see. Yeah, I was listening to the one with Black Juju on it. Pretty spooky track, which is 9 minutes and 11 seconds long. Kind of interesting. Then, yeah, like Pretties for You from 1969. Almost has like a British psychedelic pop kind of vibe, but with a typical kind of like Frank Zappa-esque, like sneering, like bleh, like kind of, sarcasm to it. A couple of his first album was a live record, and so was his third record, which is interesting, kind of unusual. And let's see, Easy Action in 1970 and Killer in 1971, which does have the track, let's see, Under My Wheels, Dead Babies, Killer, and this one jumped out at me, Desperado. Alice Cooper had a song called Desperado like a year before the Eagles came out with Desperado. And I don't know if they like knew each other, but they definitely were kind of in that Laurel Canyon, like Sunset Strip, Troubadour kind of crowd. I think Alice Cooper was based in LA by this point, signed by Zappa. And I listened to it. It's like not similar to like Desperado by the Eagles. It's just like it's weird. But like a lot of, I mean, definitely it's like spooky occult kind of themes, like definitely a kind of leaning into like darkness. Like this is almost some of the first, like he's almost one of the first goths, you could say, of like rock music. Like, you know, like in this, like it's kind of a corny, like Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of way, but and it's not quite heavy metal. Are you going to defend goths right now?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't characterize Alice Cooper as goth. Maybe like stylistically dark with the kind of corpse paint, but you know,
I would say proto goth. Like, I mean, I think he was considered kind of, he was lumped in with like glam rock, really, but just in this spookier style
like,
of it.
Right, but spookiness is not goth make, you know. If goth is all about being post-punk, you know, like Joy Division.
True,
is like maybe
I
more
know.
proto-goth. Bauhaus, Susie Sue, you know, Sisters of Mercy.
No, I get it. But I will say that I was reminded recently because I went and I watched a movie we talked about in the past, Phantom of the Paradise, over at Sus Tel Aviv resident Quentin Tarantino's New Beverly Theater. This is before the conflict started, but they were playing Phantom of the Paradise in 35 millimeter. So I got to watch that again. Really love that movie. It's like one of my favorite De Palma films. And I think anybody who's like into like McGowan weird scene stuff should definitely watch it. Because like De Palma is kind of spitting in this movie about like, you know, it's sort of riffing on the Phantom of the Opera, but it's really all about the satanic music industry and how it like steals music from people, like the evil swan who like literally has a contract with the devil. For like eternal youth and power, blah, blah, blah. But if you'll remember, like one of the plot points in that movie is like, you know, they basically they replaced the girl, Phoenix, who like Winslow Leach, like the protagonist, like wants her to sing his cantata, right? His Faust cantata. And the evil swan, you know, basically is like, of course. But then he decides he needs to like switch her out with basically something more evil and like sick. And so there's that scene where he's just like going around in a circle to like all the different groups singing the cantata in like a completely different genre. And then there's Beef, like the kind of shitty guitar slinging, you know, guy who's actually like an effeminate gay man who's just putting on like a persona of being like a beefed out like shock rocker, like super masculine. Like it's kind of a funny like detail of the movie that I wonder what like De Palma was kind of getting at with that. But then he ends up becoming this like shock rock kind of like like snakes and leather and like, you know, face paint kind of guy who's doing like this heavy metal hard rock, like really shitty version of the cantata. And I mean, this movie came out in 1974, so Alice Cooper was already like a couple years into being sort of famous. But I mean, I think the movie is directly riffing on Alice Cooper more than anybody else. And you know, and you know, by having the character in that position, it's sort of implying that like this style of music is almost like exactly what Satan like asks for, you know, from his record producer, from his record moguls. Like, give me the shittiest, like low vibrational, like loud kind of shock rock crap like ever, with like no beauty in it. That's just all kind of like camp and fake and whatever. And so yeah, I wonder if like De Palma feels that way about Alice Cooper. Basically, I mean, he shits on a lot of people. Like he kind of shits on the Beach Boys and like, you know, that like a few different kind of styles of music, but he definitely takes satirical aim because that's the type of music that like when like Winslow Leach, like the Phantom, finds out about it, he's like, ah, like he gets like enraged and then like spoiler alert, murders Beef like in the middle of his performance.
The movie at length. On
That's true. That's true. So that put Alice Cooper a little bit back in my mind recently because I'm like, oh yeah, like that is definitely. It was still before, you know, 74, maybe Black Sabbath was kind of on the rise at that point. But a few people have told me we should like look into Black Sabbath because that might be kind of like an Eagle situation where like obviously like they're ensconced in susness, but or actually almost like a CCR thing where they were like kind of like left wing and like I don't know, like had like socially conscious sort of lyrics, and then like the music industry like got a hold of them and like turned it all into like darkness and then ripped them off and like stole their money and shit like that. But you know, history of sus metal one day.
I still want to do like sus Beatles at some point.
I was
like
thinking about
that's
sus
the gold
Beatles too, especially because one of the later questions on this list. But yeah, I wish I had more to say about Alice Cooper, like in general. I mean, the fact that Zappa was like obsessed, like this is the lore. I guess I read it somewhere that like he invited Alice Cooper's band to like audition for him at like 7, and then he meant 7 p.m. But then like Alice Cooper and his band showed up at 7 a.m. and just started like playing on his lawn and like woke him up to like this harsh like psychedelic music, and he was so like impressed that like he immediately signed them for like several albums. But then like just I don't know, like didn't show up to any of the sessions and just said record's done after 2 hours. And like he just really wanted to release their stuff no matter how polished or good it was. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, is this the kind of situation where, you know, Swan got told like, ooh, he'll like this, you know, when he like saw Alice Cooper just like bringing these like incredibly spooky kind of like bleh, like Dead Babies. I listen to Dead Babies. It's like he has the same pee pee poo poo problem that Frank Zappa has as like a lyricist.
Makes sense.
Like like I don't know, like his big hits like No More Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, he has some classic songs from like the early 70s that like it weirdly are not. Those aren't really spooky. They're just rebellious like 70s rock. You know what I mean? Like No More Mr. Nice Guy, School's Out for Summer. That's just like, yeah, like anarchy. I'm a teenager, you know. But then all the other songs are like raped and freezing, sick things. I love the dead, dead babies. You know, like Black Juju, $1 billion babies. Ew, I don't want to know what that's about. I'm 18. Is it my body? Like just like weird. You know, maybe Welcome to My Nightmare, Devil's Food, The Black Widow, Only Women Bleed. What? Like, okay, you know, I get it. You know, we know what the 70s were like in LA. Go to hell. I'm the coolest. Oh, come on. Like, yeah, Alice Cooper Goes to Hell, 1976.
I'm the coolest. That's...
Now, maybe some people are just freaking out and like, there they go again, the church ladies. They just can't handle that this guy is like signaling.
It's called music. It's called art. It's called expression. It's just like, well, it's not that. It's just lame.
It's lame.
You know,
yeah, and it's like,
lame.
why?
There's
like,
no
why?
value to it, you know?
Yeah, and also I think I don't know too much, but
I'm not impressed by like the l'enfant terrible type approach to, you know, artistic expression, honestly.
Yeah, he also like hasn't changed his aesthetic
again, I don't
really.
know anything about Alice Cooper, honestly, so I you know, maybe I can't pass a judgment, like, because literally the only Alice Cooper song that I can recognize would be like School's Out for Summer.
Yeah,
School's Out or whatever it's called.
I will say this, like listening to a few of his early albums, like they I kind of like them more than I thought I would, because like, you know, School's Out for Summer, No More Mr. Nice Guy, it's just like, I don't know, classic Midwestern, like 70s, like it's like Chicago or something. Like it's just it's fine, but like doesn't really blow me away. And I don't know, like, but then listening to his early 70s stuff, it's kind of weird and dark and spooky and strange. I still don't like the vibe overall of like him and kind of what he's singing about and all this stuff. It's given me just sus energy, but I'll give it there that like he's kind of like a talented, you know, he and his band were talented, but then it's like, okay, we're going to clothe ourselves in this very specific aesthetic, and like he's pretty much clung to it, I think, his entire career. I mean, maybe they like as a bit they've like dressed up, like I'm seeing a picture of them in like tuxedos, like clean shaven, like sarcastically, but you know, in general I feel like he's still like, he's in his like 70s now, like he still goes around with like the black kind of like eye makeup and like the leather goth kind of thing. And like he's just embraced like his brand essentially, and I guess people are still about it. While the 80s were referred to by Cooper as his, quote, blackout albums because he cannot remember recording them owing to the influence of his new and increasing cocaine addiction. He had an album in 81 called Special Forces, sus. Oh my God, it was produced by the Richard Podolor, best known. There was a sus guy in Three Dog Night that was like very plugged into the weird scenes, but I'm forgetting which one. McGowan talks about it. I think somewhat extensively, but I wonder if Richard Podolor was like the sus guy. Let's see, he was a session musician, maybe not actually, but Special Forces. What was that? Skeletons in the Closet, Vicious Rumors. Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't remember recording these because he was so maybe he was possessed by some force that was channeling through him.
Certainly, in a way, yes.
It would not shock me. But I need to really do more of a dive. I mean, he's like the resident. He's kind of like Michael Aquino in a way of like he's so outwardly dressed like I'm a spooky shock like bleh, like kind of guy that it's not. I certainly don't feel like threatened by it, but.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for spookiness, but I don't know. Is it really spooky? Is it really? I guess it maybe was shocking at the time.
I guess shock rock is also like that even more than glam rock. Like shock rock was really what he's seen as pioneering, which a lot of other people adopted. The kind of like, yeah, like. I don't know if you ever, bit the head off a bat or something like that, but that type of shit, doing crazy, fucked up things on stage, like just to get a reaction. I mean, you could see Marilyn Manson very much as kind of like a 90s incarnation of Alice Cooper.
Definitely, yeah.
Like, just, and, in his case, maybe the Nazi aspects were a little bit more front and center, but the question said that he also has sort of like low-key right-wing politics, which... I mean, that the thing about mainstream like metal is, like it's hard not to look at like metal the way it developed, like throughout the 70s and then into the 80s to provide a kind of like soundtrack to like Ronald Reagan's presidency and like just amp up like aggro shit. It's like fine, you can listen to Slayer. Like I'm not saying you can't listen to Slayer, but like I don't know. Like think about the lyrics to it. Like I don't know, like it's like war music kind of, and at a time when America was like not at war, but was actually going through a lot of like social tribulations and things like that, and then this kind of like hyper masculine like and often like employing lots of satanic imagery, which kind of left washed it. We've talked about this before. About like the fact that they're going out there with like this like blasphemous and symbolism and stuff like that, like freaked out like normie like conservative Christian types, and they reacted to it, which then led to like more left leaning people or more nonconformist type people kind of like rallying around that music because it was
or gaining some kind of like attachment to it because it is like provocative and quote unquote subversive in that way, but it's not really substantively subversive because it's just validating kind of like the normative shadow desires, right? Like, it's transgressive to be fascist, for instance, but there are obviously, as is well known, like very prominent fascist tendencies in our society that are liable to be encouraged or discouraged. It's not just that this is like harmless fun necessarily. So Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
exactly.
There is something to like we talked about like I think in the past, like this issue of like, the irony of it. That's something that I think has a, there's a porosity to this like sort of partition, this partition of irony where we like sort of set ourselves apart from how we're performing or how we're acting or what we're showing ourselves to be. And what we actually become, right? I think that Genesis P. Orridge, who I was surprised to see that we were criticized for basically echoing what had really been, put forward about them in the mainstream press, is a great example of that. Someone who was like, oh, I'm playing a game, I'm playing a part, but it substantially became an actuality. And I think that's similar to people who, throw up swastikas as kind of like a shock bit. Or people who view themselves as being vampires, drinking blood, gods like above all morality. I mean, combine that with drugs and with just the general culture of like rock and roll, it leads to a kind of moral depravity that is negative. Yeah, I would say on the whole.
Very negative, yeah.
Well, I can see maybe like at some point one could make a case for like its artistic value, but now I almost feel like that stuff I feel like it's almost flattering to call it kitsch, because it's like not quite kitsch, because kitsch almost has a certain charm. It's hackneyed, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't like strike me as being groundbreaking. Like, when, for instance, now like to see like, I don't know, like in a music video where like the devil appears, and where someone's making a big show about how satanic they are, like in a modern music video or in modern music, it's just like, all right, like, is this interesting, or is this just, like the purpose of it is a bit more obscure, and it does almost seem like it's just a signal of allegiance with certain values, maybe mistakenly, maybe under the idea of like, opposition to things like, I don't know, evangelical Christianity in the United States, something like that,
Absolutely.
But I think that ultimately, like, we see this whenever like anyone attempts to like articulate what the actual like values of Satanism would be, it always tends to be like something that very easily bleeds into like fascism,
like Nietzschean fascism, basically.
Like even the Satanic Temple, right, as many we've talked about at length, right, or has been discussed at length. On the surface they have like these incredibly innocuous like kind of, and you always see like, well, this is what Satanists really believe in, where it's like these kind of very innocuous like principles like never be mean or whatever, but like really they're like a bunch of like crypto Nazis basically.
Like process church worshiping like crypto Nazis. Very cool. I feel like that's but a lot of normies get kind of like and like establishment media outfit. There was a few years where they were on quite a tear in terms of PR of like getting normies to be like, yeah, I support the Satanic Temple, and it's like, ugh. Like they didn't even realize who they were, but they heard they were at a pro-choice rally or something, and it's like, oh yeah, like they trolled this Republican legislator, and they did some very effective PR for a while. Maybe that's kind of worn off, but the general tone of like, yeah, I'm against these crazy evangelicals, therefore anybody that's like triggering them is cool and like on my side. But like putting aside even all the problems with American evangelicalism, which are many, they're not the only baddies in society, or it's not the only baddie philosophy. Like it doesn't mean that something predicated on worshiping like, I don't know, the dark prince of hell, who puts above like self, basically the triumph of like the self over everything. And like most strands of like dark occultism or Satanism do that. Like you could see how that is like not a great
Well,
mix.
this
Like
discussion-
gassing people up with that in our present day society is actually like doesn't seem like a good thing. Like,
well, this discussion kind of, I think, reflects like what I feel like is the approach that one needs to have towards like something like evil or like Satan, right? Is that evil isn't a matter of symbols. This stuff doesn't work in terms of like how things appear, right? That's one of the fundamental facts about the devil, basically, in any conception of it, is that the devil can be like fair seeming, right? The devil doesn't always appear to be it doesn't always appear to be the devil. It doesn't always appear to be evil, right? It can appear to be good. And I think that's broadly true. Like, it's not, and I don't just mean that in the sense of that, like, people embrace the idea of literally worshiping the devil as something good as sort of a reaction to their feeling of disillusionment with religion or something like that. But also that, like, groups and organizations that do profess like opposition to the devil can in fact be evil. And in many cases, like there is a great interpenetration between like those two things, like, extreme professed religiosity in like in the sort of Abrahamic or other tradition, and the tendencies and the impulses and the vices that we recognize as being satanic, right? So I think that it's not a matter of just like, everything that looks evil and scary is satanic, or appears evil and scary is satanic. It's not a matter of the exoteric, right? It's not a matter of symbols and not a matter of appearances. It's a matter of, its actual effects. And I think,
exactly. Like things that are evil often masquerade as not evil. And sometimes they do like a reverse psychology where they're like, I'm decked out in all the symbols of evil, but you know what? I'm actually like a really good guy. Or something like that. But actually, okay, wait, there's a twist to this, because I was just flipping through like Alice Cooper's Wikipedia page, and I found an article from 2007 where Alice Cooper criticized Marilyn Manson for being overly anti-Christian in his music. And in fact, in the article, he self-identifies as a Christian, which is interesting. So I don't know if that's a later phenomenon of Alice Cooper, but that's almost like an Insane Clown Posse thing, where they had this like extreme kind of image and content in their music.
Carnival is Jesus.
It's kind of like that. Hold on, Alice Cooper. When did he? I wonder if he converted at a certain point. But it's interesting that the real prodigal son, Alice Cooper, shares his testimony. Wow. So he keeps going on tour.
His father was an evangelist in the Church of Jesus Christ.
Interesting. Okay, there's a lot with. We might have to return to Alice Cooper one day.
And his maternal grandfather, Thurman Sylvester Fernier, was a leader and later president of that church organization.
Wow. So he's a church kid. Interesting. That kind of makes sense too. Oftentimes, like you aesthetically rebel against.
He's a Mormon, right?
Oh wait, LDS.
The Church of Jesus Christ.
That's not LDS though. Well, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
The Book of Mormon as scripture, so they're not. Yeah, I think they're a Mormon organization.
That actually is even more true, because I think that there's a lot of bands of sort of like lapsed Mormons that, especially from like Las Vegas. Like I remember the Killers were like this, and God, maybe a couple other groups, but it's the kind of thing where if you kind of fall out with the community, then you go super hard in the other direction of like all the things you're sort of prohibited from in Mormonism, right? It's kind of a thing. It's kind of a vibe. So interesting. So then, he said, and also being from Detroit, that I'm surprised that he's. I never thought of like there being a lot of Mormons in Detroit.
Yeah, they're not like the Utah Mormons necessarily. They're like they're kind of like Shia Mormons.
Wow.
They see
Interesting.
Sidney Rigdon as Smith's rightful successor, who I guess Mormons don't necessarily agree that he was, right? Yeah, following the death of Joseph Smith, the secession crisis led to schisms in the movement. The Brigham Young branch traveled west to Utah, while Rigdon traveled eastward to Pittsburgh.
Oh, wow. So they ended up kind of in the Rust Belt.
Yeah, they're Shia Mormons.
Wow.
And,
Okay. Fascinating.
Yeah, they're sometimes referred to as Rigdonites by non-members. So yeah, this is basically like the
Interesting.
the real Offit. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, also like his performance art as well. It went a lot deeper than just kind of dressing up shockingly. There was whole kind of like bizarre, like theater aspect to his stage performances, and I guess it morphed from a more androgynous kind of figure gradually into the kind of the villainous, like dark guy that became sort of his like default personality. But there were like mock executions and gothic torture modes being imposed on Cooper, climaxing in a staged execution by electric chair, which is actually how Beef in Famine of the Paradise dies. Is he has like a lightning bolt light thrown at him, and he gets electrocuted. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wonder if De Palma like knew Alice Cooper and was like friends with him or something. Huh. L.A. just didn't get it, he said, because he didn't move there until 1972. He was in Detroit. He said, L.A. just didn't get it. They were all on the wrong drug for us. They were on acid, and we were basically drinking beer. We fit much more in Detroit than we did anywhere else. Interesting. So he kind of really went against like the kind of hippie flower power bands like in his early years, and then that kind of morphed into like this performance, like extreme violent performance thing that then kind of went into like macho glam rock territory. And let's see, what did he say about Marilyn Manson?
That makes sense. Thinking about it as something that was like a reaction against the hippie vibe makes sense, you know.
Because I guess you could say like the Stooges and like there are a couple other bands that were kind of like that. I mean, we even talked about how Creedence like a little bit was like bucking against like the super hippie flower power trippy kind of trend. Like they like indulged in it a little bit early on, but then they took it more in like a southern direction. It sounds like they kind of did that as well. I guess on his album Brutal Planet, all his songs are reality based, which he says the 4 scariest songs on the album were all from CNN. They are Blow Me a Kiss, about the Columbine shootings, Wicked Young Man, about hate groups in America, and Pick Up the Bones, about the war in Kosovo. Interesting. He says, I literally saw that on CNN, said Cooper about the latter song. I saw the guy collecting his family in a pillowcase. I couldn't believe it. I sat there and I said, Stephen King couldn't write this. Nobody would believe it. I was in the midst of writing Brutal Planet, and I started getting all this evidence that we're already there. The even greater horror, said Cooper, is that we don't react. We live in these little convenient pockets called Toronto, Phoenix, said the Arizona-based rocker. We might as well have the glass bubble put over top of us because we're so insulated. There's 65 wars going on this planet right now, but everybody talks about how enlightened we are. Everybody talks about how technology is bringing the global community together. And isn't it great that we're living in such a time of peace? Genocide is rampant. Wow, okay, facts, Alice. As you might expect, some of Brutal Planet's lyrics are heavy, and Cooper expects some flack, particularly when it comes to Wicked Young Man, in which the protagonist talks about having, quote, a pocket full of bullets and a blueprint of the school. Well, don't you think we ought to know who this guy is, he said. I think Alice... Oh, he also talks about Alice Cooper in the third person, like it's a different... multiple personality.
Yeah, that
FYI.
I could see Vigilant Citizen having a field day with this. You know,
the original Monarch.
Yeah.
So he says, "quote: I think Alice should write about him, should describe him, should warn you about him. He's here. We can't just sweep him under the rug. As much as I hate Columbine, we can't just let that be another page in history. We need for that to be something that's in our face for quite a while. Because I mean, if that wasn't a wake-up call, what was?" Cooper, who has 3 children, aged 7 and 19, said he's genuinely concerned about the state of the planet, but he would never put the blame on increasingly violent entertainment. Quote, I took exception to their blaming rock and roll because, of course, it's the easiest target. Rock and roll. How does a parent not know his kid's got 50 bombs in the garage? I have a 15-year-old son. I know if he's got a firecracker. I know if he's got a BB gun. I'm in touch with him. I'm connected to him. How do you not know your kid's got enough to wipe out an army with weapons? Still, Cooper, who won't perform in Toronto until spring, did say he has some problems with his 90s counterpart, Marilyn Manson. Quote, I'm Christian, and I'm sitting there going, how dare you tear up the Bible on stage? He even pissed me off. And this whole Antichrist superstar. Personally, as a Christian, I took real exception to that. I wasn't surprised by it. He was surprised, however, that Manson adopted a style similar to his. Quote, I figured anybody that creative would go out of his way not to look like Alice Cooper. To name yourself Marilyn Manson, that's like coming out with a band that looks like Kiss and calling yourself Smooch. It's a little too close, isn't it? Whoa, wow,
Yeah,
okay.
he has a bit of a point, yeah.
He does have a bit of a point. Now, I mean, maybe I'm retracting a little bit there's definitely sus vibes going on with Alice Cooper, but maybe it's a little more complex than he's just
became
beef.
A born-again Christian later on, I guess, after he was a Mormon.
After his blackout era?
After his blackout era.
Okay, so it seems like he rebelled against his like Shia Mormon upbringing and embraced like the dark side kind of shit, and then fell into a freebase cocaine like black hole in the 80s, and then became a born again Christian, but is still mad about he wasn't wrong about living in Phoenix and all these other places and genocide happening.
He wasn't wrong about genocide happening in the least. Yeah, it's interesting because he was like really, I guess, anti-politics, like or getting involved in politics at all. You know, he believes that rock and roll and politics should have nothing to do with each other.
Interesting. I kind of respect that to a point.
He said that those who supported John Kerry were committing treason against rock and roll.
I mean, it wouldn't have made a difference if Bruce Springsteen and all these other people like didn't endorse him, but maybe they did commit treason. That was around the time rock and roll fell off after 2004. I mean, a lot of reasons why you could say it. I mean, maybe really more 2008, but maybe that's what set it in motion. They all committed treason against. But okay, but he sounds like kind of a man, like both sides suck, like that kind of vibe.
Yeah,
is sort of what I'm getting.
But
he is a Christian. He doesn't like ripping up the
Henley.
Bible.
He said, if I wasn't already a Bush supporter, I would have immediately switched. Linda Ronstadt, Don Henley. Geez, that's a good reason right there to vote for Bush.
Oh, okay. All right. So he was a Bush supporter?
Yeah. I guess. I don't know.
Wait. So it's treason to support John Kerry, but it's not treason against rock and roll to vote for George W. Bush?
I mean, it seems to be like what he was sort of implying, but I mean, he might have been being facetious, like criticizing those who supported Kerry by saying like that, I don't know, but...
okay, because I almost took it as, like standing up for any politician, man, is a whack, but I guess endorsing Bush...
He doesn't think rock stars should be vocal about politics while discussing Ted Nugent. He said this, I don't ever talk politics. I don't think rock and roll and politics belong in the same bed together, but a lot of people think it does, because we have a voice and we should use our voice. But again, rock and roll should be anti-political, I think. When my parents started talking about politics, I wonder what those conversations were.
Yeah.
I would turn on the Stones as loud as I could. I don't want to hear politics, and I still feel that way. Interesting. Okay.
Weird. Like rock and roll is his dissociative trigger
when
to
musicians
not
are
think
telling
about
people
politics.
who to vote for, I think that's an abuse of power. You're telling your fans how to think for themselves, just to think like you. Rock and roll is about freedom, and that's not freedom. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. See. All right. This is weird. I mean, it sounds similar to Zappa. A little bit, but coming from like a very specific personal place of like running away from Shia Mormonism, and weird that Zappa like honed in on this kid especially and was like,
rock stars sharing their opinions was the worst idea ever. Okay,
But he's like also
I
saying
guess, like,
he loves Bush. Like,
well, going off of my meager knowledge of Alice Cooper, I guess "School's Out for Summer" does not express an opinion.
it celebrates school
Looking at
being
the
blown to
lyrics right
pieces.
now,
So
I
like
guess
public
so.
infrastructure
It's
being
kind of got
destroyed.
an anti-authoritarian sensibility, right? You know, we can't salute you, can't find a flag. If that don't suit you, that's a drag. All right.
Yeah, which
Girls
gets
and boys found
which
new toys.
it's vague enough to be it can be kind of coded in either direction, and
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
anti-teacher, I guess. Or I mean, is this necessarily? I guess maybe tonally you get it, but you know, could it be like lamenting that there are no more pencils and no more teachers?
I mean, the tone of the song is so celebratory that I think it's like it's like
But
celebrating.
Then he says, "Out for summer, out till fall. We might not come back at all."
Yeah.
Hmm.
And like school's been blown
no
to pieces.
Intelligence. We can't even think of a word that rhymes.
Yeah, it's like celebrating like not being educated,
Ignorance and,
being stupid. Yeah,
stupidity.
see,
Yeah,
this is where it gets.
basically,
This is
really
where some of the rock and roll shit
satanic
when I
value.
like when I go back on it, it's like be stupid, like
this is
don't
like the
educate
satanic
yourself.
idea
like,
of freedom, where it's like rock and roll is about freedom. It's about not expressing any opinions except like the virtue of being dumb and not and hating teachers and wanting them to blow up.
and all authorities like are tankies that need to be overthrown, like in this like Freudian way. Like everything's like mom and dad and needs to be like overthrown. Like it's interesting how that specific expression of rock and roll like carved out such a big portion of the market, like in the 70s and the 80s. And then like I just keep thinking about that Moscow Peace Festival in like 1990, where I think like Metallica or like Pantera, there were like a shitload of like all of these types of bands, you know, came to rock out, or like right before. And I can't remember right now, but somebody was sharing something sus about one musician or another like a week or two ago. And I guess the organizer of that concert was also like a music manager who had been caught with like, I don't know, like 25 pounds of like marijuana or something. And as like part of his community service, he was allowed to go organize the Moscow Peace like heavy metal festival in 1990, which is like, so literally he did it like, you know, under the supervision of like law enforcement. Like, I don't know. I have to remember who that is. I don't know why I can't remember it right now. But
that's this interview in Vulture where he says, "I grew up in the church. All my friends were from there. When the band got together, I went as far away as I possibly could go and became the poster boy for everything that was wrong. The right-wing Christian world thought I was satanic. They heard about the hangings and the guillotine and the snakes and all that. They didn't count in the comedy of it. They didn't get it. It was a bit. But it was based in dark comedy. There was never anything anti-Christian in my show. There were never any upside-down crosses. There was nothing satanic. When I became Christian, my pastor said, 'Look where God put you.' And I said, 'What do you mean?' He says, 'Well, you were the Fonz. You were the leader of the pack, and now you're Christian. Don't you think it's a great place for you to be in rock and roll?' I went, 'Yeah, I do.' He says, 'Okay, I don't think Jesus is looking at you and saying, I gave you all this talent, don't use it. I take time out to read and pray every single morning. I play right before I go on stage. I'm in church every Sunday with my wife. We have a Christian teen outreach, but it's not going to affect the show because there was never anything in the show that was anti-Christian.'"
Interesting.
So
okay.
That's his position.
Huh.
Yes. He says, "There is no Alice Cooper. I play the character Alice Cooper. I sometimes forget that I'm Alice Cooper. I play this character the same way I would play Macbeth, and the same way I would play Jack the Ripper. It's not me. I am totally the opposite of that character. That's why he's so much fun to play."
Fascinating. So it's like it's a full bit.
It's completely a bit,
character.
yeah. I mean, of course, like, you know, I agree that, like, representing something and condoning it, like, should not be conflated. But I also think that there is certainly complexity there that's long been acknowledged. Not to say that, again, like I said, I really know nothing about Alice Cooper. I strongly oppose the lyrics "School's Out for Summer." I feel like this should have been the anthem of the recent Twitter discourse of, like, schools suck. I mean, obviously I recognize the disciplinary aspect of schools and how schools are mechanisms of indoctrination, although I'm not opposed to schools per se. I think schools per se are good. I recognize that
Yes.
schools in, American society, the institution of education is deeply imbricated with all the systems that we criticize for sure. But
Yes.
education per se, I do not oppose.
I stand resolutely that schools should not be blown to pieces.
They Schools by
not
Dead
cool.
Prez is a much more sophisticated critique of education than Schools Out for Summer, I would say. So,
Word.
yeah. I mean, again, I almost feel like, I don't know, Alice Cooper is not something that really is on my radar or something that there might be some susness there, but I don't know if it's in the shocking components of it, because it's almost so. I imagine at the time maybe, but at the time I almost could see that there maybe is some at least creativity to this because it was a bit more novel. So I don't know, but I feel like it's not something that, certainly Alice Cooper is not something that I feel is a major. It's not sus in the way of it's so incredibly demonic in its aesthetics,
Yeah.
Maybe at the time I would have registered differently, but I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I think the Zappa connection is worth maybe looking into when we, maybe one day have to do a dedicated, sus check on, Frank Zappa. The chapter in Weird Scenes is not enough for some people, apparently. But I think there's also interesting nuances there of what made him into, I don't know, whatever he was. But, all right. Also, since I think this will come out before Halloween, hopefully next week, but I guess I'll just say I'm going to be speaking, doing something at an event in Los Angeles. It's going to be on this Friday, October 27th, starting at 9 p.m. in Echo Park with Recluse and several other personalities. I think we're all going to be talking about the sus history of Los Angeles primarily, but I'll post on Instagram the flyer for it so you can text the number for the address. I don't really know what I'll be doing, but it will be something. So, yeah, I'll be representing SJ's West Coast wing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a little bit late notice for me, so I won't be making it out to California. But since you are there...
Since I'm right there, I think I'm going to pop in. So if you want to hang out with Recluse, I know there's going to be some Grotto heads in attendance. But yeah, if you want to come kick it, do that.
Collecting pieces of my family in an old pillowcase. This one has a skull, but it don't have a face. These look like the arms of my father, so strong. And the ring on this finger means my grandmother's gone. Here's some legs in a pile where my sister once played. Here's some mud made of blood, and these teeth are decayed. The ear of my brother, the hand of a friend, and I just can't put them back together again. Pick up the bows and set them on fire. Follow the smoke, going higher and higher. Pick up the bows and someday the sun's gonna shine, flowers will bloom, and all will be fine. But nothing'll grow on this burnt, cursed ground, 'cause the breath of the death is the only sound.